Let's say you don't have a ton of legendary commander sculptures sitting around and you're trying to make a couple really powerful marches, especially if you're free to play and are trying to use unmaxed commanders that have the potential to be upgraded later if you want to. This guide is for you, whether you're just entering the Season of Conquest KVKs or you've been there for a while and you're looking to add another march. This top 5 list will give you the very best marches where honestly the commanders are so good you don't have to have them maxed for these pairs to be outstanding. Hello my friends and welcome back. I'm Chisgule Gaming and this video has been sponsored by the makers of Rise of Kingdoms, and today I want to review with you off the back of the video I did yesterday, by the way, with really good 5/5, 1/1 legendaries. I want to talk about the best combinations of commanders that are so strong they don't need to be maxed to get amazing value. And there's a couple things that I wanted to use as a basis for this list. First of all, these need to be commanders that for the most part you will want to invest more in later. They are so good you don't have to have them maxed, but obviously putting more into them will get you more so that it's a long-term investment. Things you can count on later when you want to add more sculptures to still be good. And as I go through this list, by the way, timestamps are of course in the description. I'm going to start with the honorable mentions, the commanders and pairings that didn't quite make the cut. I'll talk about why. Then I'll get into the top 5, which I think are all extremely good investments. And at the very end, I'll address a few of sort of what I've been calling whatabouts, where I get all these comments where people say, what about this commander? What about that commander? So I'll make sure to talk about some of those things so you at least know where my head was at when I was thinking about and evaluating those different possibilities. Now, by the way, if this kind of video helps you out and you get value from it, throw a like on here and consider subscribing. It supports my channel tremendously and really helps more than you know. So let's start with the honorable mentions. And I think it's kind of unfortunate that this is what I'm going to do right now, that it's going to be all archers to start. There are 4 commanders I want to talk about that all are really good unmaxed, actually. But I can't recommend that you invest in them right now. And the reason is that we've been getting mythic tier commanders coming into the game. Not actually, not technically, but the power creep on the new legendary CPO and Nevsky is so high. We don't yet have an archer with that level of power creep. So I don't think at this moment it's a great plan to go and put sculptures in an unmaxed legendary archer because it's not a platform for future investment. Maybe. I mean, we just don't know. Okay. So these honorable mentions include Nebu. It includes Gilgamesh. It includes Cyrus. And it includes Ramses. And you actually can combine all of those commanders in almost any way you want, and they're all really good together unmaxed. Cyrus and Ramses is amazing. Gilgamesh and Cyrus together are amazing. Nebu and Cyrus together are amazing. Nebu and Ramses together are really good. Like all of those commanders, you can mix and match in almost any configuration, and they're very good. All unmaxed would be great in the open field. But again, they don't make my top 5 list because I don't think it's a great platform for investment yet. Once we see in 3 months from now, when those, mythic tier archers arrive, then I can give you more confidence around which one of those will pair with the new sort of mythic tier commander. And I'm calling them mythics. Again, that's not technically what they're called. The next pairing, I'll call it 2 pairings actually, are cavalry pairings that they don't make the list, but they're so good. And honestly, you would be completely unashamed to use them unmaxed. And that includes XY primary, where he is 5/5, 1/1. Ideally, you get to 5/5, 1/5. And the secondary that you use is Mehmed. That's the first pairing. Now, the reason that I think this is so good is that Mehmed is kind of like a worse Honda Tarakatsu. And Honda with XY, I actually use that combo. That's really good. I plan to use that combo. That's meta. That's just straight amazing. So I think of Mehmed as kind of like a worse Honda, okay? And you can get him free to play, open from gold keys, get him to 5/5, 1/5, ideally. And he's really good with XY. XY fires off skills really fast. Mehmed does skill damage, boosts skill damage. Also with his relic and museum buff, 20% health and 5% more skill damage, really, really solid with XY. The other commander that's really good with XY is a unmaxed Saladin primary. And the reason that I can't really recommend this in my top 5 is that Saladin is no longer really a top tier sort of platform for investment, as I struggle to find my Saladin here. The problem is that Nevsky is kind of like better Saladin. Like anywhere you'd use Saladin, you'd probably rather have just had Nevsky. So I think that Saladin XY is really strong. And if you're just getting to the Season of Conquest and you had invested in Saladin, this is a pair you could make. It's just not a pair I would recommend that people go invest in and out of their way to make, because I just don't think Saladin holds that same long-term value. He's still really good, and I would still consider using him. In fact, I did use Saladin with William and XY with Nevsky for a lot of my open field fighting in my last KVK. But compared to these other investments I'm going to recommend to you, I think you can do better. And while I'm talking about Saladin, this is one of my final honorable mentions here. I do need to mention Saladin William. This probably would be like number 6 on my list. Maybe it should even be number 5. Saladin's not a great platform for investment. Spoiler alert, I mean, I think Nevsky is. So you know Nevsky with William is going to show up on this list, right? But the William buffs are just so good, and Saladin is so tanky that even unmaxed, you do need to max 3 skills here instead of just 2, I feel, to really start to get a lot of value with this combo. You can still do really well with the first 3 skills on Saladin, the first 2 skills on William, and you're in a great position. The final commander that I want to talk about in the honorable mentions right now, who made my list before, is Trajan with Ethel. And Trajan can be unmaxed, right? It's better than using Joan of Arc to bring Trajan, but this also costs you legendary commander sculptures, whereas Joan of Arc doesn't. But people are a lot less likely to attack a Trajan primary with Ethel secondary than they are to hunt an Ethel primary with a Joan secondary. Like, you're probably going to get focused out and get wrecked. So I think this is cool because it takes a commander you're guaranteed to have maxed. You're going to have Ethelflaed maxed. And it lets you use that in a way that's really powerful on the battlefield. The downside, however, is that, like, it compared to these other commander investments I'm going to recommend to you, this just doesn't rank highly enough. It's just not good enough. This is like one of the last things you go and do for your murder ball. Probably not the first, okay? But let's talk about the 5 things that I think might be the first things that you go and do for your murder ball in the Season of Conquest. The top 5. Clocking in at number 5. Best free to play. You don't have to max them. Legendary commander pairing is going to be Guan Yu with Leonidas. Now, Leonidas is a questionable pickup here, not because he's bad with Guan. In fact, the two are so good. They're so astonishingly good together that despite new CPO coming into the game, I'm still using Guan Leo together. And I'm going to make a separate CPO march. Guan Leo is that good. And 5/5, 1/1 Leo. I already talked about it in yesterday's video. Card will be up in the top if you want to watch more about that and see that logic. You can see that at the end of this one. Is so good that actually with your Guan Yu, I mean, the number of sculptures you need to make this march and start using it, you could do the 55 sculptures to max the first skill on Guan, go 1/1/1 on the remaining skills, do 5/5, 1/1 Leo, and you're looking at like 255 sculptures total for a march that is good in the open field. Your Guan becomes a platform for future investment. You do want to put more sculptures on him, but you can start using this combo. I've always felt like, by the way, that a Alex secondary to Guan is a little more squishy than I would like. But I think Guan Alex, obviously unmaxed, also is really good. And although I don't have him on my list, I would be remiss if I didn't at least talk about him for a second. Maybe this belonged in the honorable mentions section as another really great Guan pairing that you might already have. But I also would argue that Alex is so good that you could put him somewhere else and get a lot of value somewhere else. So this Guan Leo combo is a nice way to get a small amount of sculptures, solid amount of value. The only downside with Leo is that at this moment in time in the game, he's not really an amazing platform for future investment. The reason I say that is that he brings a lot of tankiness, but 0 utility. He brings decent damage, and that comes from both his 4th skill boosting damage and his active skill doing AoE damage. But in the new era of commanders, you basically get it all. You get utility and area of effect damage and more march speed. He has none. You get a little bit of everything, and he doesn't have that. So I think he will be faded out over time, but I still think at this moment in time, it's a very strong march. Now, the next march I want to talk about is going to involve Alexander the Great, and this is number 4 on the list, and it's going to be new CPO with Alexander the Great. Now, I know they both do shields, and there may be some issue with the shields overlapping. I get that, but you're going to get a ton of march speed on your infantry. This march is going to reduce the health of your enemies. It's going to make it so they can't heal, at least as effectively. It has instant proc damage. It has shields all over the place. It boosts the damage that you deal. It's going to do damage over time. I think CPO Alex is so good, I probably will be using that combo fully maxed out. But if you add CPO, 5-5-1-1. If you have Alex, 5-5-1-1. I mean, 400 sculptures of investment, minimum, and you're off to the races with that combo. And it's a platform for future investment, which is a big part of the reason that I'm recommending it to you and putting things in this list, so that over time, as you get more sculptures, you can decide, do I want to make this march stronger, or do I want to make some other march viable, or whatever you need to do, you can make those choices. Number 3 on the list, I'm actually going to give you 2 pairings. And it is going to be XY primary. And you have 2 options for secondaries here. It depends on your sort of philosophy and what you're trying to accomplish. Your secondary is going to be either Nevsky or it's going to be William. Now, the beauty of this is that your XY can be 5-5-1-1. Ideally, it will be 5-5-1-5. And for your secondaries, again, William can be 5-5-1-1. Nevsky can be 5-5-1-1. And if you want more single target damage, then Nevsky is obviously the jam. He's amazing. He's so good. XY Nevsky is the one best march, in my opinion, to bring to an Altar of Darkness fight. However, if you're bringing 4 or 5 marches to the battlefield, or you just want to help out your friends, then I think William is actually the better play. And that is because on William's 4th skill, giving everybody, or at least 5 nearby marches, 10% defense and 50 rage per second is really game-changing. Like, actually, it's game-changing. Like, truly game-changing. I can't overstate how important that is. So as far as unmaxed commanders go, the ability to take XY primary, who's doing an AoE defense reduction, pair with either William doing buffs or Nevsky doing more debuffs and a lot of damage. Yep, that makes number 3 on the list. Amazing platform for future investment. And let's get right into number 2. This is more cavalry. And, you know, previously my number 1 pair on the best unmaxed legendary list was Saladin with William. I promised you Nevsky with William was going to show up. Here he is. Nevsky with William is number 2. And it should be unsurprising that the sort of mythic tier or mythic quality commander is here in the number 2 rank. I've already talked enough about how William is just so god tier. This is the march I plan to make on my restart project. My money will be where my mouth is. You will get to see me use this march almost certainly. The only reason if I were to not do it, would be if I go and spend a bunch of money on, I think, Minamoto. That might be why I might do that. And then if I invest in some Archer Commander, but I don't intend to do that at this moment in time. It doesn't make sense for me. And I use this on my main account extensively. It's very good. I plan to use this combo on my main account in the future. Obviously, mine are maxed, but starting with them unmaxed and then working on them sort of when it's convenient for you, I think is a great plan. This brings us to the number 1, again, this is my opinion, number 1 best unmaxed legendary combo, really good for free to play. And that is going to be Guan with new CPO. Ooh, it's so good. They're so good together. They're made for each other. They're like perfect together. Guan and CPO are so good. I mean, I don't want to call CPO better Leo because it's so much more than that. But like anytime you would have considered using Leo, like CPO is just better. So CPO is kind of just like way better Leo, okay? CPO at 5511, that's 200 sculptures. And Guan as low as maxing the first skill if you had to and going 111. I'm not saying you stop there. Obviously not. But I'm saying as a starting point, if you're like, oh man, I've been really bad with night sculptures, what do I do? I think this is the best march you can do. And CPO is showing up in the game in a couple weeks, but by the time most people will be watching this, CPO will probably be in the game. For those of you watching, you know, some number of months down the road. Guan with CPO secondary. This is obviously the legendary tier CPO that's on his way into the game. This combo, I think, might honestly be the best open field combo in the game. If it's not the best, then it will certainly be the second best. The only thing that might be better is Nevsky William or XY William. And in fact, when I think about what I might be bringing to the sort of Altar of Darkness fight, I'll have to see how good Guan CPO performs, and if that ultimately outperforms the XY with Nevsky, which, like, the thing about Cavalry is they move fast, and when you're controlling only one march, that's actually kind of amazing. But I think Guan CPO will be a contender here. Amazing platform for future investment. Obviously, you want to put more than just maxing the first skill onto the Guan, but if you were in a crisis and you were like, I really didn't prepare, and I don't have many sculptures, I think that would be a reasonable choice. Both of those commanders, great to invest in the future. And I suppose this is the moment where I should talk about the commanders that didn't make the list and might have made the list previously. And by the way, if there's any pairings or commanders you think I should have talked about, definitely let me know down below in the comments. Let's talk about some of the ones that didn't make the list that did before, and that includes Constantine and Richard. Great in Canyon, not great anymore in the open field. Since I made my last list, they released Gilgamesh, who punishes healing. Also, because of how much damage new commanders are doing these days, the tankiness and damage disruption that these two are doing, it's not good enough anymore. It doesn't match the power level of the new commanders coming in the game. So they're not good enough for field. They weren't on the list. And the final what about that I think I want to address here is just Artemisia and Tommy. I've talked a lot about unmaxed Tommy being very good in the past. In fact, Ark of Osiris League players and grand champions are stuffing Tommy into almost any march, and that is because of her fourth skill doing some poison effects here. Now, those poison effects are really powerful, making you take additional skill damage. There's a couple reasons why this doesn't make the cut for me, however. I think the power level of this march is not at the same tier. Maybe not even, it's like 3 tiers away from all of the marches that I shared with you. The damage is not there. The utility is not good enough, I think, to justify using it, even though the low sculpture investment of a 5.511 Artemisia and ideally like a 5.115 Tommy would be really good. That's really hard to obtain. You're probably going to end up spending more sculptures anyways. Plus, this is a Mightiest Governor sculpture commander, so it'd be a little bit harder to obtain as well. But even if you could obtain it, again, I want to lean back on the guidance I gave you that this is just not a great time to be investing in archers and archer marches, because we don't yet know 3 months from now what the mythic tier archer is going to look like, but it's going to be mythic tier and you're going to probably want to use it. And it just feels silly if you have other things you could be investing in, like Guan, Scipio, Nevsky, William, where we know there's no new calves coming for quite some time. We know there's no new infantry besides, the ones that are about to land in game that are going to come for a very long time. Those are very safe, feels like very good long-term investments compared to one of these commanders where, like, I might be telling you in 3 months from now that, like, you should do something else. So I would be really remiss to recommend that. If you want to see more information about just some of the best 5.511 or really just unmaxed legendaries in the game as individual commanders, I did that guide yesterday. It was very popular. All the card up in the top. You can go check out that video. And until next time, you have fun smashing the kingdom.